podcast for all things health and fitness related. And today you just have me. Last week you just had Joe, and this week you've just got me. No, we haven't fallen out, but because of coming up to Christmas, we're just so busy that Joe gave me the week off last week, and I gave her the week off this week. So it's welcome to this one-man show. And today I want to talk to you about a subject which is really important to me, which is what is on the other side of pain. What is on the other side of pain? When I was a kid, one of the most influential films of my life, I guess I was about 12 or 13 years old, when I came home from the video shop with my copy of Conan the Barbarian, the Arnold Schwarzenegger film that made him famous, which had just come out at the time. And I remember reading it, and right at the beginning, as the title credits roll at the beginning, there's a line from, I didn't realise who he was at the time, from a very famous philosopher, Friedrich Nietzsche. And it comes up and it says, "That which does not kill us makes us stronger." And it really stuck with me. And that's the story of Conan's life. He was an orphan and he got kidnapped, and everything that could possibly have gone wrong went wrong, which would have destroyed him, should have destroyed him, but didn't destroy him, and actually made him this great barbarian figure who saves the princess and wins the world and so on and so forth. But it stuck with me. You see, one thing I've discovered as I've got older is that human beings will do almost anything to avoid physical pain, or its psychological equivalent, which is failure. So we have physical pain in one hand, and I don't like pain, none of us like pain. And there's a psychological equivalent, which is failure or shame, and the sense of failure often leads to a sense of shame. And we'll do anything we can to avoid those things. We'll go to extreme lengths to avoid those two things. But all of the good stuff in life is on the other side of pain. All of the success in life is on the other side of failure. And this is where it gets really interesting, because pain and pleasure are two sides of the same coin. Now, one is defined because of the other. We understand one because of the presence of the other. So I couldn't take away one side of the coin. If I tried to take away one side of the coin, the other side would cease to exist. If I was to take away, let's say, I was to take away the left, the right would cease to exist. If I was to take away north, south would cease to exist. Do you understand what I'm saying here? And pain and pleasure are these two poles which hold the whole thing together, and they're two sides of the same coin. One of them defines the other and makes the other important and valuable, and the other one defines the other and makes the other one not valuable and something we try to avoid. Pleasure is defined by pain. When we're in pain, because we have pain in our life, pleasure exists. If you take all of pain away from our life, pleasure will cease to exist. If you take all pain, all pleasure away from our life, then pain will cease to exist as well. And so you have to understand that if we want to experience pleasure, we have to understand there's going to be pain in our life. Without pain, how would I recognize pleasure? Without failure, how would I ever know success? Without struggle, how would I ever know victory? Going back to the story of Conan, incredible story, but the wonderful thing about that was that it was a struggle. It was an epic struggle, a titanic struggle, which nobody expected Conan to win, but he did, and he came out on top. Aren't all great stories like that? You know, whether you go back to Shakespeare and Henry V, once more to the breach, dear friends, once more fill the gap with our English dead, or whether we come through to Star Wars and the epic battle of the Rebel Alliance against the Galactic Empire, and so on and so forth. It's the struggle that defines victory. If the Second World War had been something that lasted sort of 3 minutes, we wouldn't be celebrating it to this day. We wouldn't be holding that generation as being such an incredible generation to have gone through. When we see the generation that went through the Blitz, one of the reasons why we get so excited and we celebrate them and we honour them is because of the level of pain and struggle that they went through. And out of that came a tremendous generation. And we talk about them and say they were the great generation. And I think all of us would look back and say, we couldn't hold a candle to their level of fortitude, their level of courage, their level of determination. If the same thing, God forbid, were to happen today, I don't know where we would stand. But they came out of that great struggle. Out of great struggle came greatness. And this is the underlying principle of all sporting endeavour. It's the underlying principle of all business. It's actually the underlying principle of all human and other life. Now, there are two types of pain to recognise, particularly in bodybuilding and in physical sport. There's the pain that's ultimately destructive. The pain, for instance, where you might rip a pec muscle. And if you've ever done that or been around somebody who rips a bicep or rips a pec, it's quite dramatic. It's very, very painful. It's not something, there is very little which is productive about that. If you've ever given yourself a hernia by trying to lift something really heavy, you'll know that there's very little that's productive about that. You know, I know good stuff can come out of that in the end, but actually, let's face it, we would rather do without going to hospital with a hernia. But there's also the sort of pain that's indicative of correct effort. So in the gym, that might be when you're doing bicep curls, the pump you get in the muscle, and as you do the bicep curl, the blood flows into the muscle and it pumps up and it feels great and the muscle swells. But actually, that's quite painful. It can be very, very painful sometimes. And then towards the end of the set, the muscle then fills up with lactic acid. And like any acid, that's painful inside. There's acid in our muscle. But that's indicative that we're applying the correct amount of energy, the correct amount of effort, and pain is coming to us as a signal that we're doing it right. It's like after leg day, needing a wheelchair virtually to get out of the gym. You know, you've just gone crazy on legs, as I did this morning. And Jo came over to me, she said, "Are you okay, hon?" I said, "No, fetch the wheelchair." And I always think, if on leg day, if I can walk out of the gym and look normal, then I haven't worked out hard enough. But if the pain is there, I know that I can barely walk, I really feel like I need a wheelchair, then actually that pain is indicative I've given it the correct effort. And on the other side of that pain, there's a great reward. Now, what's the reward I'm looking for? I'm looking for muscular growth. Muscular growth happens like this. You tear down muscle tissue in the gym. It's actually a destructive thing. You tear it down, and then over the next few days, by correct eating, by correct nutrition, and by resting, that muscle grows back. It repairs itself, but it doesn't just repair itself to the level it was before you trained. It makes it a little bit stronger than it was before. So success, if you like, the reward of muscular growth, cannot happen without the pain of muscles being torn down, first of all. Muscle destruction is what makes muscle growth. So what lies on the other side of this good sort of pain is reward. And when we get our head around that, it will change not just the way we approach the gym, not just the way we approach a training session, but it changes our entire life. We could think about saving up to buy a new car. Now, you could go out now and you could buy a car over 48 months and then still have to give it back at the end of it and pay a small mortgage for that and pay, like 10% or 15% in interest on top of that for the privilege of getting something right now. Or you could save up for the car, spend perhaps 5 years saving up for that car. Now, that's a level of pain. There's a level of pain involved with that. But when you get to the end, you have reward, because I can now go and buy that car and it's not going to, I don't have to take out a loan. I don't have to pay any interest. I'm going to own it outright when I come to sell it at the end of the day. Tremendous reward for some temporary pain. And what about sticking with your diet? Some of you are going to come back to us in January and you're going to be feeling a whole world of pain because all of the good that you did in the last few months of diet, you'd have thrown away over the Christmas break. Some of you are going to feel a level of pain during Christmas when they bring out Christmas turkey and you're going to say, I just have a small portion. When they bring out the Christmas cake and you say just one small slice, you're going to exercise a certain amount of discipline, which I guess is a certain amount of pain. But the reward is going to be after Christmas when you look in the mirror and you don't look like a beach whale, right? So there is reward, which is with pain. So what about this one? Daring to risk rejection so you can ask a girl for a date. So there's reward, big reward, but on the other side of that is a huge opportunity for failure. Now, I know some people, I used to be a youth leader, and some people, I know one guy who actually block text every person, every girl in his phone book and asked them out. Because he just guessed if I scattergun approach this, one of them is bound to say yes. Now, don't do that. But if you want to date the girl, at some point you're going to have to summon up the energy and the wherewithal and the courage and get past the pain of it. And let's face it, it's pain, right? Get past the pain of it to look her in the eye and say, will you come out for coffee with me? Or whatever it is you're going to do. Huge opportunity for failure there. Huge opportunity for pain. But what a huge opportunity for a reward. Now, bodybuilders learn to channel pain. And by channeling that pain, they turn it into muscle gains. Remember, you cannot get muscle gain without muscular pain. Now, you can get fat without pain, but you can't get muscle without muscular pain. So if your workouts, if there's no pain involved in your workouts, guess what? You're probably not going to get much muscular growth from it. Now, a dieter learns to channel pain and therefore turn it into fat loss. There's a process by which they embrace the pain of dieting to get fat loss in just the same way a bodybuilder embraces the pain of lifting a very heavy weight to turn it into muscle gain. Now, here's the incredible thing. If you do this for long enough, you actually begin to rewire your brain. And the pain of a workout starts to become something that you actually enjoy. It's an incredible thing. The brain has a way of rewiring so that it views things differently if they're done long enough with a different mindset. And so now no longer, I love working out people, and when they start working out and the first time they get a pump, they put down the weights, they say, ouch, this hurts, I want to stop. And there's a tremendous moment that comes when they start rewiring the brain and they feel the pain and they carry on doing it and a smile forms on their face because they're now associating that pain with muscular gain. What's happened is there's a new neural association that's been made. Muscle pain is now gain. Instead of being something I run away from, it's something that I embrace. And that's an incredible thing about pain and pleasure and the way the brain works. Now, there's a psychological type of pain as well, and that's called failure. And that's another thing we absolutely try to avoid. The other side of failure is, of course, you guessed it, success. What if Thomas Edison, who invented the light bulb, had stopped after 1,999 attempts at creating a perfect filament to run electricity through that would cause light to come on? Of course he didn't. He carried on, and on the 2000th attempt, he created the perfect filament and the light bulb came on, and the rest, of course, is history. Thomas Edison said this: I never quit until I get what I'm after. Negative results are just what I'm after. They are just as valuable to me as positive results. What an incredible thing to say. See, successful athletes learn to use failure in the same positive way. In the sense of a bodybuilder going into a gym, a set of exercises isn't complete until you fail. Not really. You almost go into the gym determined that you won't leave until you fail. Make this your mindset. If you want muscular gains, go into the gym and say, I will not come out until I fail. What do I mean by that? Not until I fall down on the floor dead. But if I'm doing 10 reps of bicep curl, I'm not going to stop at 10 if I don't fail at 10. If I've still got a little bit in the tank, I'm going to make sure that at least one set of every exercise I take to the point where I physically cannot do another rep. I'm not talking about I can't do it because it's going to hurt or it's uncomfortable, but physically my arms have stopped moving. They will not go any further. At that point, I've achieved failure. And this is a way of rewiring our brain to see it. I have achieved failure. Come on, I have won. When I go to failure on a set, 2 days later, once the muscle has grown, I've succeeded. What was my goal? My goal is to grow muscle over the next few days. And in order to do that, right now, my goal has to be to fail. I have to embrace failure. And if I do that, I'm going to succeed, because on the other side of pain is pleasure, and on the other side of failure is success. Now, you can do this for any part of your life, you can think in terms of business. If you give up in business after one business fails, my goodness, most successful businessmen crash a few businesses before they have a business that makes them a lot of money. Some people, you may have even crashed your marriage, but don't give up. You've learnt a whole bunch of stuff which doesn't work. Now into your next relationship, you can say, man, I'm going into my next relationship. I know the things that don't work. I'm going to make sure I wisen up and I get it right this time. Perhaps you have dropped out of school. You messed up at school. Well, that's okay. You do Open University. You still do a degree later on. You can still go into training or something later on and say, man, I failed then. But because of that failure, I now have a bunch of things I know, strategies I've proven don't work, which puts me in an advantage with everybody else. Maybe you failed in your diet many, many times before. That's great. Just spend some time thinking about them and work out, what did I do that didn't work? And that gives me an advantage over somebody who has never failed before. So what's the take home from this? Well, here's the take home. Firstly, be mindful of your state of mind. What motivates you to give up? What causes you to give up? And I'll lay money on it that it's the desire to avoid pain, or it's the fear of failure. One of those two things is causing you to want to give up. And then you ask yourself, what pleasure lies on the other side of this pain? Or what potential success lies on the other side of this potential failure? Now, you may think you've been a failure all of your life. That's okay, because next time might be your success. The problem is everybody gives up just before they succeed. If Thomas Edison, remember, 1,999 times he got it wrong, but on the 2,000th time he became rich and famous and it achieved something wonderful for humanity. What if you gave up on the 1,999th time? Wow. See, potential success lies on the other side of this potential failure. Now, once I've done that, I start meditating on the pleasure and potential success until I can taste it. For the joy that's set before me, for that which I see, for the outcome, I start seeing that until I can taste it, until I can smell it, until I can feel it, more than I can taste and smell and feel failure. I may have failed 100 times in the past, and I know the taste of failure. I know the smell of failure. But still, the incredible thing about the human brain is I believe that if you closed your eyes right now, you could still taste what it's like to have £1 million, what it's like to have the girl of your dreams, what it's like to have a body that you deserve, what it's like to have kids that love you and have a wonderful family. I believe you can imagine that. And if you can imagine that, then you have a great advantage on somebody who never can. Meditate on it, meditate on it, meditate on it. And while you're in that state, while you can smell it and taste it, associate it with the pain you need to go through to get there. I sometimes go to bed at night and if I'm aching and hurting, I will imagine myself winning the Mr. Olympia contest. Now, I'm never going to win it. I'm never going to go in for it. It's not something I want to do. But I imagine that because that helps me motivate myself to go through the pain in order to gain my goals. What are your goals? What are your desires? What is the pain that you need to go through to get there? What's the potential failure you need to go through there to get to that place of success? And as you do that, I promise you, it'll start the process of rewiring your brain to see what is on the other side. What is on the other side of pain? Pleasure. What is on the other side of ultimate failure? Ultimate success. My friends, I hope this has been helpful. Don't give up. Go for it. Go through the pain. Go through the failure, and you'll gain pleasure, you'll gain success, and you'll get to your destination. God bless you.